Hey Beacon, welcome home to your Bounce Back Blueprint Community podcast, where you are challenged to be, do, and have God's best as you thrive on your journey from setback to success. I'm your Bounce Back guide, Tiffany Huff Struthers, and I'll be guiding you on the journey by sharing tips, tools, and the tea on how I was able to bounce back from escaping death, healing from heartbreak, and finding hope in homelessness. And then I wrote an award-winning book all about it. And shout out to God, ever since I was courageous enough to share my story, my life and the lives of women around the world have been forever changed. And as a member of the Bounce Back Blueprint community, I'm called to teach you to do the same. So grab your journal and let's build this blueprint. Hey, Begin. Welcome back for another episode in our series on motherhood. I'm excited about our guest who is helping us build the blueprint this week. She is my sister friend, Bree Carroll. Let me tell you a little bit about Bree before she joins us. Bree Carroll is the military marriage coach. She is a wedding and event specialist and speaker who transforms spaces and hearts through authentic design and purposeful planning. With a background in civil engineering, yes, she is a civil engineering event designer. Bree brings her brilliance of problem solving and eye for design to couples so they design a marriage even more beautiful than their wedding day. Come on, somebody. Using her C.A.R.E method, she guides couples through designing a marriage that celebrates their core values. As a voice in the milspouse community and the 2020-2021 AFI Air Force Spouse of the Year, she celebrates strong military marriages on her nationally broadcasted podcast, Hearts and Stripes. She also speaks on her podcast on the power of relationships. Welcome to the show, Bree.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'm so glad to be here. And let me get a shout out to my fellow beacons because I listen and I glean from all the goodness that comes from this podcast. Hello, hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for being here and, of course, for listening. And so, since you are a listener, then you know that the next thing I'm going to ask is for you to introduce yourself beyond the bio. So, please tell the community who you are beyond the bio.
Yes, beyond the bio, I am a wife. I am a mom. Beyond the bio, I am just Bree, and I'm so happy that you asked that question that way because oftentimes I think we get caught up in the titles and the things and the roles and let that define us. And I know we'll jump into that in a little bit because I get passionate about that part of things. I am just Bree. I am the friend that if you want to go out, I'm here to get the party started, encourage you, get you in a great mood, but I'm also just okay chilling at the house with family and building a legacy really that I can pass on to different generations, not just my kids, but my kids. And that's really what I want to do, live a whole life that I can be proud of. And the way I'm doing that is just through serving, serving in marriages, helping to build healthy, sustainable marriages. And I do that by working with women, and I serve my people first. Shout out to everybody out there who is in the military or knows about that military life. So my military spouses and my service women is primarily who I serve in this role as the military marriage coach.
And, and so, in your service to women, how is it that you actually help and serve the women in their marriages when you're working with them?
Yes, thank you for that. So the way that I actually serve them is through coaching, but oftentimes what I realize is we have to break that thing down to take off and peel back those layers of these titles and just talk to her, just the person. And I do that through my identity program. It is currently a 4-week count coaching program that also has coursework along with it and some journaling. We use reframing and affirmation techniques to really help them with that introspection, because the world can be very busy. Now, the pandemic slowed us down a little bit, but our minds, that doesn't mean you had peace in your mind. That doesn't mean you've calmed yourself. You may still be trying to live up to a certain role, stereotype, expectation. And through the identity program, we really just take some steps as I guide you through figuring out or kind of just regrounding you to who you are and whose you are. Because I will say, we are faith-based. I have used these methods via the identity program for myself as a military spouse. I've been there, y'all. I've had the times after having a child when I didn't know who I was. My body looked different. I felt different. My hormones were all over the place. Or with a move came a career change or a shift or an uncertainty of if I'll still have that same title. And I just want to be a guide to women to help them not spiral into that cycle of insecurity and lacking confidence and self-doubt, because you never take the time to just stop and think about who you are. And then as it goes into that marriage part, right? So we started with just talking about you, the individual. Now, because we know who you are, we are able to know who you are in your marriage. And that's when we bring in that marriage component and we work through that in coaching via a program as well, where I do some group coaching with some amazing women.
That is so good. You've said so much that I want to dig into, specifically when it comes to identity and also, like you said, the stereotypes, the roles, and the expectations. And I know for myself, as I transitioned from single mom to wife, there were some challenges. And
Mm-hmm.
days I still face challenges in balancing being a wife first, right? You mentioned that it is a spiritual business that you have, and so
Yes.
that is God, spouse, children. But sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a little challenging to maintain that balance in the day-to-day throes
That
of life.
order. Yep. Uh-huh.
Yes. And so I'm curious about, how often you see that come up with your clients and how you help them, dare I say, find balance with being a wife and a mom, or, the idea that she has to choose sometimes.
Yeah, and I think I know you treaded lightly on that word balance, because we all know it's not equal parts per se for this balance. I like to use the word harmony now, trying to find that harmony in the order of things and the
Yes.
way that we prioritize things in a right way. So the way I have seen that come up actually, especially because of the group that I serve. So serving primarily military spouse and service women, oftentimes what happens on the spouse's end of things is they may be staying at home, not necessarily by choice, but because of circumstance. And in that role of staying at home, being a stay-at-home mom, your primary role becomes caregiver and supporter of those children. So oftentimes that struggle of trying to get control or feel in control of your peace in that marriage tends to present itself in a way to where they are putting the children before the marriage, because that's something that they feel they can control. That home, like, this is my office, this is my property, this is what I can claim and have some dominion over, right? This is going to be where I shine. And then they're not thinking about how getting possessive in owning a space, because maybe they feel like they're missing out and not being in a work capacity, or not being out and about like their spouse may be, it impacts how they show up for their marriage, and then they lose that order. So that's why I love that you broke down that hierarchy, if you will, keeping God first, then your marriage, and then your children. But remembering, as we're talking about keeping God first, that's why it's so important to remember that God first talks about your relationship with God. I'm all about relationships. That's what I coach about. So the primary relationship is your relationship with yourself, which has a lot to do with your relationship with your creator, right? That is the first thing you have to get right and get in focus. Once you know who you are and whose you are, then you can walk some things out in confidence, and it won't be this tug of war between, I have to be the best mom, I have to be all these things, or I have to meet all these expectations as a mom, or even as a wife. It's something that you're able to walk through, knowing that your spouse is your partner, that this is a thing that we get to do together. And although you may be staying at home, or you're the primary care provider for your children, or the person that everybody runs up to, because kids like to say mommy before they like to say daddy a lot of times. You still can get what you were calling that harmony, or that balance in that, knowing that order of how things should just go.
So let's talk about that a little bit. This tug of war that sometimes precedes or interrupts the harmony, right? If you are a mom who is, whether you're married or not,
Yeah.
even if you have a partner and you're not married yet, but you're in this tug of war, for a season, I felt like from day to day, I was having to choose which battle, right? The battle was definitely coming. I was having to choose whether it was going to be a battle with my spouse or a battle with my children, because of what seemed like an impossibility for harmony at that time. And so I was kind of tiptoeing either around the kids or around my spouse for a period of time. So when for the woman who's listening, who's challenged with, you know, having that harmony, who's feeling like the exhaustion of the tug of war, what are some practical things that she can do? You already know that I am a strong proponent of having that solid relationship with God, right? So she has her relationship with God, but in the day to day,
Yes.
beyond her prayer life, right, and seeking him for guidance, what are some practical things you would recommend that she does to kind of move out of the tug of war and towards harmony? And know that this is not something that will happen overnight.
Right, absolutely. And I'm glad that you prefaced it with that. It's not an overnight thing. I think the first step of that is really for her to sit down and think about, what is it that you want your day to day to be? Because I can give you recommendations and advice all day long, but if it does not align with what you have the vision for your life to be, then the advice or the guidance will kind of fall on deaf ears, right? So you first have to get an awareness of what your day-to-day, what peace do you need in your day-to-day? What is an area that makes you feel uncomfortable, nervous, stressed? You have to do that evaluation for your day-to-day first and foremost. The second step that I would say in that is you need to communicate with your children and with your spouse. And what that communication may entail may be you feel pressure when it comes to a certain time of day, because you may be the primary person providing a meal, and you feel this pressure that you have to provide this meal, and then the cleanup is going to be on you too. So you already are building up anxiety about these things. Talk to your spouse. That's your partner. That's someone that's supposed to be in this with you. You can share, I feel some anxiety in my day when it comes to this point. What are some ways that we can talk through that you can support me in this? Having those conversations are huge. The same thing with your children. Now, I know your listeners may be of varying ages. I know mine, my oldest is 6. So we have started having the kids. You have to at least clear the table and put your plate, once it's finished, on the counter. You scrape off whatever you didn't eat, you put your plate on the counter. That way I know at a minimum, if mommy is tired and does nothing else, there's still not plates and cups and stuff all over the house. It's in one central area so that when I am in a better place and have the energy to do it, I can get to it. I think the third part that I would say is be a protector of your time. You need to protect and guard your time. Yes, there are 24 hours in the day, but what does that break out to? You've communicated that you needed the help. You've done the evaluation to see what areas you may need to change in your day. Now guard your time and let's set up some time. Like you mentioned, you may have set aside time with God, but have you set aside time that is just for you and your spouse? Uninterrupted. Kids, I'm sorry, when this door is closed or at this certain time, this is our time. And then even setting up time for family time. It doesn't have to necessarily be an activity out. I know people have that's kind of digressed a little bit since we've been in quarantine and stuff, but setting aside family time, if that's a weekend, if that's dinner time, everybody sitting around the table, be intentional about guarding those times, because what'll happen is that tug of war happens when you're not giving someone the time or attention that they want. Because typically as women, we want to love. That's what people are coming to us for, to get that comfort, to get maybe that touch, those words to affirm them. And they want to be in our space. They want to be in our bubble, but we have to ensure that we are setting aside time to meet these different needs that may arise in our role as a wife and as a mother.
So good. Oh my gosh. So those 3 steps, what I hear you saying is it's going to require first and foremost for you to get honest with yourself, right?
Yes.
I know a lot of times when we are in these challenging situations, it's like, but they don't this and they don't this. But really, it's going to require you to take a step back and get a holistic view of the picture so that you can get honest with yourself, not only about what's going wrong, but also about what's going right and the difference between the two, right? That's that
Yes.
piece you said about what does peace look like for you? That's such
Mm-hmm.
a good question. And as busy women who are moms and wives and partners and all of the other things, we have to prioritize the time to ask ourselves questions like this so that we can get clear about the work that we need to do.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
good. I feel like these 3 steps are just clearly aligned with the cornerstones of the bounce back blueprint. So that first step you said about getting awareness, that's clarity, right? The
Yes.
second piece about communicating with your children and your spouse, for me, that is the courage piece, because some of these conversations are going to be uncomfortable, right?
Yes. Yes.
Especially if you're feeling the tug of war, it's very likely that your spouse is too. And
Mm-hmm.
so when it's time to have that conversation, he might do a little bit of finger pointing as well. So you've got to be in a position where you can be courageous enough to have the conversation and know that it might get a little heated, but you're still going to come out better on the other side.
Right.
And one of the things that my therapist has helped me to do is when it's a challenging or what she suggested is when it's a challenging conversation for you and or your spouse, get a journal that is specifically for you and your spouse, and write a letter, right? And then give it to your spouse and let your spouse write the letter and then
I
give it
love
back
that. Yes.
until it gets to the point where you're at least on the same page and you can have a conversation without shouting or without somebody shutting down.
Yes. And I love that advice. I actually do something or advise something similar when my clients come up against a wall and they're like, I don't we walk through the thought work of, I know I need to have this conversation, but I don't know how.
Right.
oftentimes I will recommend create a script and then think through, okay, line by line, you're afraid to say this one part in it. Well, what could happen if you do say this line? Or what positive or negative? Because oftentimes we always go to the negative. Well, as soon as I say I need help with, we gonna keep it dishes, right? We'll keep it same. I need help with the dishes. He's gonna blow up because he's gonna say, I'm saying he doesn't help at all. Well, what happens if you reframe that? What is another way that you could word that if you feel like that can be a sticking point? Do you need to add in your script a line above that to disarm whatever you think he may say? You may start it by saying, honey, I so appreciate how you consistently take out the garbage, how you just been so great with ensuring that our hair, our son's hair is brushed. And I absolutely love it how you continue to maintain these cars.
So
But I feel
affirming
like,
first.
right. Compliment it first. Unpack that so that you are communicating an awareness of what they are currently doing. And then get to that point of bringing up something that you would like support in, additional support in, and get creative. I had to do the same thing in my marriage. And you know what our solution is now? I always came up, growing up, I always hand washed dishes. That was my habit. That was something that I was used to doing. My husband and my solution is we now load the dishwasher. Like
Hello.
it doesn't sound like a big shift or a, oh, that's how he was trying to get out of helping with dishes. No, it is a solution. So now I can teach the kids how to start loading some things in the dishwasher. He can load the dishwasher. And so it becomes something that before it felt like it was all on me. Now together, because I went through this script, because I was able to affirm and thank him for the things that he is doing, and then talk about that issue or the part that caused me some stress, we were collectively able to come up with a solution that not only supported my feelings, but it also made him feel like he was the problem solver in that scenario. He helped me by offering this outcome or solution that I was not thinking of. And it gets our children involved to align and let them see mommy and daddy are working as a team and we're on this team too. So when we're talking about that marriage and that tug of war when it comes to your children, you got to know the team captains are going to be the parents. You have to be aligned because you will project that and you will show them that this is a team. We want you guys on our team. You are a part of this, as opposed to them trying to, how little people do, come up to you, ask mommy one thing, you ask daddy something, the same thing, and y'all are on different No, show up as the team. What did your
Yes.
father say?
Yes.
Before you come ask, what did your father say? Get in alignment in those ways.
Yes, that's so good. I love that. We are the team captains, but we are one team. And that was the other piece I was going to add about communication. For as much as you need to communicate with your spouse and you need to communicate with your children, you need to bridge the communication between your spouse and your children, and then be sure that there is some collective communication as well.
Yes.
And that is
Yes.
so, like, I want to go back to that because I think it's so huge in alleviating the tug of war, is really getting on the same page with your spouse and
Yes.
presenting a united front, right? Because, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, when the little people see a little discord, they're going to use it to their advantage. And then
Oh,
that
yes.
makes even more of a tug of war.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
I love it. And then that last step you said about protecting your time, to me, is the commitment piece, right? Which is the third cornerstone of the bounce back blueprint, and really being committed to being successful as a wife and mom. And I think when you're willing to guard and protect your time, it gives you the space to have those opportunities where you can be mom, period, and be wife, period, and
Yeah.
still embrace the times when you are being wife and mom, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Because it's so
Absolutely.
often that we don't have, we're being a mom and a business owner, right? We're being a mom and, insert whatever else you do. And that's not to say that you can't be working on your business and your child is next to you coloring. I'm not saying that, but
Right.
because the culture has created this standard where you should be doing the most at all times, we lose sight that it's okay for us to
Right.
focus on what's most important in that moment. And
Yes, Tiffany, let me break that part. Multitasking.
mm,
When did sure see in the word that Jesus was multitasking? It
yes,
even came to a point where he was called because someone was dying and he still had them wait.
come on with it.
He was not rushing around.
Ooh,
He was focused on healing the people that were the present need. And I think what you're talking about with that focus, we are trying to meet all these other needs as opposed to focusing on the present need. And that is what is going to stop that tug of war, because we try to be all things to all people at the same time. That's not how that works. And I love how you said that I can be a wife, period, and be focused and intentional and dialed in to my marriage during this moment. That's why we talk about that timepiece,
yeah.
guarding that time. And the same thing with my kids. I can be dialed in and focused in on them because, and by all means, beacons, I'm talking, this is for me too, because there have been plenty of times when my child has come up trying to tell me about something that they done drew on a piece of paper and mommy's trying to work. And I felt guilty
Yeah.
about focusing on the one thing. It takes us being intentional. It takes us being prayerful, and it takes practice to continue this notion of just being present and focusing on the one thing and finding that harmony in these relationships and these different hats and capacities that we balance as we live.
Woo, that is so good. When have you seen Jesus multitasking? I mean, I'm blessed by that alone.
Right,
That's
right.
a
That was
whole
a
nother
it was an eye
episode
opener
all
for
by
me.
itself.
Look, y'all
Woo!
go do a Bible study and go look it up. See when Jesus was multitasking. If you find it, please let us know.
Yes, that is good. Yes, I love it. Okay, so we got the practical steps. We got the importance of your own identity. And I guess the next question is the maintenance of these practical steps, right? This is not something that you're going to do one time and it's going to be finished, right? Because what you need to bring you peace, like you said, when your children are 6 and 3, are going to be different than when your children are my age, are the ages of my children, which is 15 and 17. So being open and intentional to consistently reevaluate what's working and what's not so that you don't slide back into that tug of war.
Yes, and I love this concept because I teach this with my C.A.R.E method, also known as the marriage bridge blueprint. And what I do is I have people think about what you're building in your relationship, in your marriage, is a bridge. And oftentimes you may be building a bridge to go over generational curses. You may be building a bridge to go over those stereotypes and those stigmas, or that old picture of, or bad mindsets that you have, right? When you look at the world's bridges that have been famous for many a years, you realize that they're able to withstand because they go through a period of maintenance. They typically have to be maintained. It's not a set it and forget it, because as the population grows, excuse me as I nerd out real quick, but as the population grows, that means you have more people crossing that bridge. It's taking new loads. It's taking new vehicles
Mhm.
that's going across. You maybe have bigger vehicles that need to go across this bridge. So it needs a certain level of maintenance. And the same thing in your life as you grow in your marriage, as your children grow, as your family grows, as your finances grow. Let me speak that into y'all lives. As the
Come
opportunities
on
in
with it.
front of you grow, you have to go back and you have to think through these steps and these stages and this vision and realign and say, hey, we got that part down, but this new challenge ahead of us, we haven't gone through these steps to see what does peace look like now at this new place with these older children, or for those who may be empty nesters, right? For those who are out of the season of having children in your home, but now they are calling you, hey mom, checking in. What does that look like for you now? What are you communicating to them now? When are we getting together and coming together as a family? That looks a lot different from when they were maybe under your roof, or maybe they were little and they don't have all the schedules and extracurriculars and things. It changes. And the same with your marriage. It changes. So how are you communicating that? And how are you guarding your time in those changes as you grow, as you develop? So I love how you said that it's a continuous cycle. It's not a set it and forget it. You have to ensure that you are maintaining that sustainable structure of your relationships.
Yes, I love it. And I want to reiterate, because like you said, as you grow, you have to do maintenance. And so if you haven't been to this point regularly, doing the questions about your, having more awareness, you haven't been facilitating those courageous conversations, or you haven't been protecting your time, now is a great time to start. It's not
Yes,
too late. It's not too far gone. You can still do the maintenance and strengthen that bridge, right?
absolutely.
So I think it would
Absolutely.
be great for you to share your CARE. It's an acronym, right?
Yes, it is. And the way I love to say it, it dropped into my spirit. I got that divine download as an engineer, and it's really a picture of a bridge. And I said, how, Lord, how can I communicate the steps that I've walked out in my own marriage to see 7 consecutive years of being happily married? Now, a lot of people may be like, oh, that's not long, but I said consecutive years, y'all. Consecutive
Woo!
years happily married. And I feel like that is the greatest accolade that I can say, not because I put value on the person that I'm in the relationship with, but because I put value on the call that God has on our life and how our marriage will bless other people. So when I got this CARE method, it really comes down to, for marriages to be successful, all they need to do is care. C.A.R.E. Careful consideration. Well, we kind of just talked about that. We walked through how you need to assess these things in your life. And in this example, we talked about for your peace, for a practical day. So that's careful consideration. The next step, we're going to assess the foundation. Anything that you need to build up needs to be built on a solid structure, something that can withstand when that wind blows. So when we talk about assessing the foundation, I'm talking about digging into that ground. Are we building on good ground? Do you
Mm.
have some mindset things that we need to pull out and work on before we build something new on? Do we have to pull up some thorny areas and weeds that may have been growing? Do we have baggage, some boulders of old things that are still in our closet and unaddressed? So we need to ensure that we are assessing that foundation. Are we're reinforcing the structure. Those are those vertical members of your bridge, that structure, those rules that you have in your life, the boundaries. There we go, that B word, the boundaries that we set up in our life, our faith. Those are our guideposts. That's how we reinforce the structure in our marriage. And when you do have disagreements, we go back to that reinforced structure that aligns us back on course based off of our big vision. So we've carefully considered, right? We've assessed the foundation, we've reinforced the structure, and now we get to engage and trust. And that's that horizontal or that horizontal member that you see. That's that span that allows you to be in marriage for a long time. It's the action. It's the people that are traveling across this bridge. You have to take action in your relationship to see the fruit of it. That is how you are going to design a sustainable marriage. You can't just have the rules and not follow. is what I'm saying. I'm trying to break it down and say you have to engage with your partner. You have to engage through that communication. You have to engage and trust in your partner, in your team member, in the other captain of the team, right? Bringing it all together. That's the C.A.R.E method. That is the framework that we've used and continue to use as we've had to do some renovations and modifications to our bridge as our vision for our marriage, for our family grows and expands. We have to look at, okay, we on a new level now, right? Because personally walking through this method for the Marriage Bridge Blueprint, my husband and I are excited to say we are completely debt free with the exception of a mortgage.
Come on.
We are at a new level, which means we got to expand the vision. We can bless some more people now. This bridge has to carry a little bigger load now because we can do a little more. We can go a little further. So we walk right back through that C.A.R.E method again as we continue to renovate and tweak and modify that bridge. And it's based off of our core values. God is always going to be first, because as for this house, right? As we know, that's a part of our reinforcing that structure. So that stays the same. But as you grow, you add some things onto that, because now you may be adding something for your children as they get a little wiser, as they grow and they start imitating the things that they see your bridge. And that's why I love the picture of a bridge, because you can look at a bridge from afar and admire its beauty. It's not only functional, it's sustaining, and it's getting people to new places.
Yes.
What is your bridge? What is your bridge? The bridge that you're building, what does that look like from afar to other people? Do you have one of those rickety rope bridges that was like in Tomb Raider, where the boards is falling through, like,
and
what?
It shakes when you go across.
And it shakes when you're on it. What kind of bridge are we building? And that's what I like to walk people through, specifically my women, to know that you are the heart of your marriage. The bridge and the things that you are building with your relationship, they matter. They bless other people. And it starts with you working on you, the individual, that looking at your bridge, the legacy that you are going to leave, not just for your immediate family, but for all that are impacted and can see that beautiful bridge that you are building in your life.
Man, that is so good. And I really don't have much to add outside of this C.A.R.E method is one that you can use whether you're married or not. This C.A.R.E method will work if you are a mother in a tug of war with a friendship, if you're a mother in a tug of war with being a mom and working a full-time job, or balancing the responsibilities of being in service, right? It's not limited to your marriage, but it is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way to clarify the journey of marriage and the iterations that your marriage can go through in different seasons in your life. But it's also very it intersects with those same seasons and iterations you can go through as a woman, right? Because there are going to be some seasons, some junctures where you're going to have some careful considerations. There's going to be some times when you have to assess the foundation and make sure that you are aligned with what how God would have you aligned. And it might mean, like you said, you got to get rid of some baggage. You got to face some things. So, I mean, that was so good. To have a successful marriage, all you have to do is care. I'm going to extend that and say, if you want to have successful relationships,
thank you.
From with yourself, with your children, with your spouse, or with anyone else, you need to care.
You need to care. That's it.
I mean, you just dropped the mic with that, Bree. I'm just I don't even have anything else.
You know, my pizza piece sister, we have to do drop mic moments. You
Yes.
already know.
Yes, this has been so good. I just pray that someone else is as blessed by
Yes.
what you've been sharing as I am, because this is so good for me. And so I'm sure there is somebody who's going to be like, I need to find that milspouse lady that was on that podcast. Can where can we find you, your podcast, and more information about the work that you are doing with women and with marriages?
Yes, Beacons. I really would love to connect with you. I like to hang out on IG, to be quite frank. I am at It's Bree Carroll. It's Bree Carroll, just my name. And you can connect with me on my website at thecarrollevents.com. That's where you can find all the things that I am doing with my coaching programs. The Hearts and Stripes podcast is on there as well. Some free resources like our marriage affirmation guide, which is definitely a tool that I would encourage anybody to pick up and utilize for themselves so that they can get their thoughts and their minds aligned with that vision that they want with their marriage, speaking life into their marriage. So y'all come on, connect with me. I would love for y'all to just say, hey, be sure to tag when you tag both of us, right? I need you to tag me and my sister on here as you are reaching out, because we love this family atmosphere. Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing your platform with me, a fellow Beacon. Shout out to all of y'all out there. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak life and to just see as they bounce back. I so appreciate you.
Yes, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have you. I know it's something we've been trying to pull together for a while now, but I feel like the
Yes.
timing is absolutely perfect. And so I'm so grateful for this time, and I am looking forward to actually listening to this again so I can make sure that I got all the gems that were dropped. So thank you so much, Bree. I'll make sure all of your information is in the show notes so people can connect with you. And you already know I'm looking forward to all of the greatness that God has in store for you, your podcast, your family, your business, everything. Listen, if y'all did not have your journals while Bree was dropping those gems, guess what? You don't have to worry because you can always hit rewind and listen again. I know I'm going to listen again. I was so blessed by the C.A.R.E method. And so if you were blessed by this episode, do me and your fellow beacons a favor and leave a review. You know that when you do, you create the space and opportunity for other women to find this podcast and get connected to such a dynamic community. And I appreciate you when you leave those reviews. And I would love to hear from you. My contact information is in the show notes, and you can send me a DM on IG. I am at the Tiffany Huff. Until next time, I will leave you with this. God is not going to play you, but if you are not out here in these streets caring about your relationships, I promise you are playing yourself. Be blessed.